Sprawl Network, this is the Players Talk Live podcast, a show dedicated to the next generation of student athletes. Here are your hosts, Chad Allen, Tommy Polley, and Eric King.
Chad Allen, and I'm joined by my co-hosts and NFL players, Tommy Polley, Eric King, and today is a special day. We're going to focus a little bit on recruiting and having that eye as a scout. And we have a special guest today, former NFL scout, Major Division I Director of Recruiting at some Power 5 institutions, Mr. Kenny Sanders. Welcome.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? Happy to be here. Can't wait to talk and get into some of these hot topics with you guys and discuss what's going on in the world today.
Hey, Eric, why don't you introduce your guy? I know you're former high school teammates and good friends, so I'll let you do the honors, brother.
Man, this young man spent the 2019 season as the director of recruiting at Oregon after spending the last 5 years as an assistant director for player personnel at Penn State. He helped the Nittany Lions land 5 consecutive recruiting classes ranked in the top 20 nationally, highlighted by the country's number 6 class in 2018. Prior to Penn State, Mr. Sanders worked in the NFL from 2009 to 2014 with the Baltimore Ravens in the organization's pro and college scouting department. His time with the Ravens came to the heels of spending 3 years in the player personnel department at the NFL League office. Sanders is also a graduate of my alma mater, McDonough School, and is also a former football teammate of mine. Kenny Sanders, you have the floor, young man. How are you?
What's up, E? What's up, fellas? Guys, just a little bit on me. Like a lot of young men out there, I love playing ball, all ball. A lot of you guys are specialized now, but all these guys I know were multiple sport athletes in high school and, always been a fan of the game. The game has helped me achieve my goals, not just, in football, but in life, furthering my education and all those positive things. So once I was done playing, I had some aspirations of staying around the game. I never really wanted to coach. I didn't think that was my avenue. So for a lot of you guys that want to stay around it and, coaching may not be a thing, but you have an eye for talent, you can find other avenues in this sport, especially football, to go about achieving those goals and staying around it. It's funny because I've seen all these men play high school sports on here, all of them. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about it. I was at Tommy Polley's basketball game back in, I want to say, 95 when they were down at Southwestern, Dunbar playing Southwestern. And they actually got y'all that day. That was a major upset. But I just remember.
We made up for it, though.
Yeah, y'all made up for it. But my thing is, I just remember watching that game, and I had watched Tommy in the Charm City Classic and all that stuff. And even back then, just admiring, how athletic he was and how talented he was. I kind of always had an eye for talent. I mean, it wasn't really hard to notice Tommy Polley's talent back in high school, but just other things, growing up and seeing different athletes coming up, I always kind of had an eye for talent. I parlayed that into, having an opportunity to do some internships, staying around the game. Eric mentioned, I worked at the NFL League office in New York City. A lot of you guys, like myself, come from the inner city. My dad wasn't an executive in the NFL. I kind of had to go about the hard way, pay my dues, do a whole lot of internships before I got my big break. And I just grinded, used that hard work that, a lot of you guys have that can translate from your sports, attitudes going into the corporate world or whatever world you go into, use that work ethic and just grinded my way up the ladder from an intern to eventually last year being the director of scouting for the director of recruiting for the University of Oregon. But after the NFL, I got another internship with the Baltimore Ravens in their scouting department, and then eventually made my way to become a scout with those guys. Fortunate enough to win a Super Bowl back in 2013 with the Ravens, so that was an awesome experience. Following that, I took the assistant director job at Penn State in 2014. They were coming off some turmoil times there at Penn State, went through a lot, but we were able to turn that thing around. A lot of you guys know about the Saquon Barkleys of the world and, the Micah Parsons of the world right now, but there were a lot of other young men that, may not have the notoriety, but definitely helped us win a lot.
Were those guys brought in on your watch? The Micah Parsons and the Saquon Barkleys? Was that on your watch, Kenny?
So I definitely had a hand in. So when you're recruiting, you do it as a group effort. Now, the coaches have, and you guys that are being recruited right now, you guys know the coaches are the ones talking to you guys a lot. But what I say makes elite programs really good at recruiting is when they have elite recruiters that can do the recruitment of those athletes. And I'm just going to be point blank with you guys. I'm the best college recruiter in the country. And I'm not saying that as a boast or a brag, but I got to feel that way about myself if I want to be really good at my job. And you guys have got to have that mentality and that mindset if you want to really be good. There are a lot of guys that do it on a high level. I could name guys in the industry for college recruiting that do a really good job. Guys out at USC, guys down at Mississippi State, guys I've worked with, guys that I admire across this industry. But I'm willing to put myself head-to-head against any of those guys to go get a kid. But a lot of that comes down to relationships, building trust. Not every school is going to be for every prospect. So you got to kind of find out where your niche is for what you offer and be able to sell that product and make that kid believe that, this school works for them. So for all you guys getting recruited out there, a lot of you guys want to get 50 offers, 20 offers. At the end of the day, you just need one, the one that makes sense to you and the one that's going to fit your goals and your dreams in life. It may be the NFL. It may be using that college degree to become a doctor. It could be going to the NFL and becoming a doctor. Whatever your dreams and your goals are, past the game of football, because these guys will tell you, you're going to hang up those cleats eventually, and you're going to be a young man, so you better have that piece of paper behind you once you're done so you can go forward to the next stage of life and accomplish the rest of your dreams and use that NFL or that college degree to back you and propel you to the next phase of your life. So got into college recruiting, did that at Penn State for 5 years, Big Ten championship, a lot of amazing families and amazing young men were able to come through that Penn State program and are still there today. And then I was offered the job at the University of Oregon in 2019, and I took the director job there. Had a historic class there, signed the most 5 stars ever in Oregon history last year, and won a Pac-12 championship. Juwan Johnson was a grad transfer from Penn State, had the winning game-sealing catch in the Rose Bowl last year. And so, everything's been, very successful, and I've been very fortunate to have a lot of people in my life that have helped me get to the part where I am now and keep that thing going.
Man, that sounds great, man. So it also sounds like you might not have been able to make it to the league physically, but you were able to make it to the league or leagues mentally, right? You put yourself and you position yourself so that you could utilize some of the skills that you had best and position yourself, man, to still be in the league and to still be in top level NCAA at Power 5. Man, that's awesome. I'm gonna swing it to Tommy, and I think he's got a couple questions for you as well.
He's muted.
Yeah, just tell me, what's up, buddy? I mean, that's a lot of hard work and grit. I mean, from starting at the bottom. Just tell me, what's some stuff you'll tell a younger scout that's trying to follow up behind? What's some tips to go for you? Because it's not a easy business to get into. And also, did you see the Rams just did a Black Scouting virtual internship for black future scouts? And do you think that's a real thing? Be it they're doing it virtually, and be it it's only for Black people, and you think that's fair? So,
I'll answer both of those questions. I'm gonna start with the first one. It's in the scouting world, it's just like anything else. If you want to be really good at that, you got to practice. It's no different than the game of football. You got to be really up on your game. The difference, people always ask me this question, what positions do you scout? Like, well, what do you do? When you're a scout, when you're a personnel guy, you have to know every position. It doesn't matter what position I played. If I want to evaluate talent at the highest level, I got to be able to know everything. So when I'm teaching some of my young guys that I've brought up, from interns or younger guys that worked under me, I do a lot of kind of scout school type things with those guys. And I make sure I show them the good, the bad, and the ugly at every position. I want to compare and contrast. So if you have anybody out there that's really interested in maybe getting into scouting, you can't look at the 5 stars. I mean, that's going to be what it's supposed to look like most of the time. You got to look at the 3 stars, the 2 stars, the no stars. There's a ton of guys in the NFL that had no stars coming out of high school. Stars don't matter. They don't matter at all. If you can play football, listen, I don't care. I mean, 40s matter, bench press matters. Football is not a weightlifting competition. It's not a track team. You got to play football. The tape's got to look like what's supposed to look like based on your position, and you got to be able to have some intangibles from a character standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, if you want to be successful. All those things matter because that's going to propel you, your work ethic, all those other things. You want to talk about how gifted and talented Saquon Barkley is as a football player? There's nobody in the country that's outworked that kid. He'd be in the gym early mornings, late night, off days, and double workout days, didn't matter. The reason why he's so good is because he worked at it. And that's what all the great ones do. Ray Lewis. Nobody watched more film than Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. Nobody. That's the difference between being really good. Once you get to the NFL, everybody's good. That's
you're speaking
bare minimum.
And this is what you saw with your own 2 eyes. You saw this with your own 2 eyes. Like this is not reports, guys, ladies and gentlemen out there. This gentleman walked these halls with these men, and saw their actions and saw what they did. I just had to make that clear.
If you're just to get to the highest level of Division I NFL, you got to be good. That's a given. That's the bare minimum. You want to be great. You want to stick around. The average NFL career is 3.5 years. You want to get to that 10-year mark, that 8-year mark, you got to do everything else. You got to take care of your body. You got to do the nutrition. You got to do all the film. You got to do the extra. You got to do the workouts. You got to stretch. You got to do all those things. All those things matter because just being good at football, it's not Pop Warner. Like, you can't just show up and be better than everybody. Everybody's good. So you got to do all those extra things that make you be the elite player that you are. So when you're looking as a scout at talent and you're evaluating that, you got to be able to identify not just, is this guy a good player, but is he going to fit into our system? How's it going to work out? And then when you're talking about recruiting a college kid, I might be looking at a 15-year-old and I got to project him being a 21-year-old. All those things come into play. NFL's a little bit different. I'm drafting a first-round pick. He's 21, 22. He's playing next year. That's the kind of a little bit more of a finished product. We hope he develops and gets better at his craft, obviously, but the pieces are already a little bit there. He's fully grown. A 15-year-old and a 22-year-old are not even the same human being. They're going to mature. They're going to grow. They're going to develop. You look at a 15-year-old kid and a 22-year-old man, you know that's not even the same thing. So when you're offering a 15-year-old kid, that's a projection. You hope he has the tools, the work ethic, everything else that comes along with it. But you got to make sure that you're doing the background. What kind of environment does he come from? What do his grades look like? Guys, do not slip on the grades. Don't wait till your junior year, just getting them books and get it right, because you'll be playing catch up and not have to worry about everything else that should have been taken care of on the front end. You got to knock that stuff out first, because at the end of the day, you have to have the eligibility to play. Don't let an opportunity slip away from you, because you could be the most talented kid sitting on the sideline or at home not playing college football. Make sure we take care of them grades. Make sure we take care of the health. Durability is the best ability. You got to be able to be on the field if you want to, be able to make the team. Grades, those are things that you can handle on your own, taking care of your body. Xbox and PlayStation aren't going anywhere. The opportunity to be great at a sport, to take care of your family, to go to wherever you want to go, that window is this big. Take care of that right now. And then when you get all the money in the world, play all the Xbox and Fortnite and all that stuff you want. Get your sleep, get your nutrition, take care of your body, get your grades. And then the easy part should be football. The easy part should be football, because once you put in the work, the rest of it takes care of itself. Answer the first question, Tommy, enough?
Yeah, that's good. Hey, and tell me a little bit, do y'all recruit the parents?
We absolutely recruit. I mean, let me answer that two ways. Yes, and it depends. If the parent is important, absolutely. Not everybody has parents in their life that are a part of the recruitment process. Now, it might be a mentor. It might be a coach. It might be an uncle. What I like to call them are the champions, people who are the champions in that person's life. A lot of times it is the parents. A lot of times it's the mom. A lot of times it's the dad. But it could be, hey, my mom comes to the games, but she don't really know what's going on. But at the end of the day, when I'm recruiting a kid, I need to touch everybody in that kid's life as important to him, because at the end of the day, that they are handing their child those 18 years of hard work and effort that they put into raising this young man to be who he is. They are basically giving him to me and my football program to carry on that legacy that they've already built. So it's very important. A kid should never commit to a program where they're not invested in the people that matter to him, because that shows you that it's not that important. They got to be invested not just in him as a football player. That's cool. But at the end of the day, it's college athletics. It's got to be about more than just playing ball. It's got to be about shaping these young men and sending them out into the world, because the reality is most of these young men are not going to play at the next level. So it's got to be deeper than that. My biggest thing is I like to tell kids, once I get deep into football, because I'm not a coach, we don't talk ball. We may talk in the beginning. I tell them how much they're terrible at football just to, mess with them a little bit. But for real, it's got to be about those relationships, what's important to the kid. I still talk to kids I recruited that didn't choose my school, because I was that deep involved in their families that we have a real relationship. It matters. It's bigger than football.
That you as a recruiter, and I'll talk recruiting and not so much the NFL, but the recruiting at the college level, what tangible skills you spoke about Barclay being a hard worker, and how do you identify these things in a student athlete in the recruiting process? And what are they? What are a few, I guess?
In the light of COVID or just in general?
Well, in the light of COVID now, being that you can't get on the campus, and so what would be a tangible skill? Like if a kid wants to be recruited by you, what would be a tangible skill he can showcase to let you know he's going to be a hard worker, he's passionate, those kind of things?
Like them virtual combine things.
Yeah. COVID has definitely made things a lot more difficult, because you don't get that face-to-face. I can't look you in the eye. You can't shake my hand as a man. Like those things are tough, because, at the end of the day, football is a collision sport. There is some toughness involved in that. You want to eye somebody up. You want to see how they interact with their parents. You want to see how they interact with their coaches. How respectful are they to the people that are already in their lives? All those things are important. The way that you can kind of gauge some of that now is effort. It's harder. It's harder now in the recruiting world. Recruiting schools recruiting, you have to put out more effort. So you as a recruit, you in turn have to put out more effort. You can't be too cool for school. You can't be, I'm going to figure it out. It's going to be all right. I mean, no. If you have interest in your future and where you're going to go, then be an active participant in the process. It's not like nobody's too cool for all this. Everybody is dealing with some kind of loss, some kind of adversity in this whole thing. So everybody has to adapt. If it was business as usual, it could be handled a different way. But right now, everyone has to adapt, whether you have 50 offers or no offers. And the funny thing is, it's like the guys that have not been as recruited are kind of a little bit more adept to handling with that, because they've been a little bit more selling themselves. Now, because we're so limited with the interaction in person, you got to do a little bit more on your end of making yourself available. You're not that busy. You can't really be that busy right now. So if you have your top 5, your top whatever it is, make sure you're active and really digging in, because the worst thing that can happen at this point is for you to make an uninformed decision on a school you want to go to because it was hard to figure it out. That's not an acceptable answer. Life is hard. Everyone's dealing with it. You got to do more. School's got to do more. Everyone has to do more because the decision about where you're going to go to school for the next 3 to 4 years or however long it is too important for you to just say, flip a coin or it is what it is. We'll see what happens. No, everyone has to do more. Kids got to do more. Schools got to do more. We just got to put in a lot more effort. And I think a lot of schools are doing that, and I do think a lot of kids are doing that. They are being active. Parents of kids are doing a lot more too. It's funny because a lot of times you'll have a kid come on campus where mom and dad had to work. But now everybody's together, so we can do these Zoom tours together. Everybody can do it. So I think it's happening naturally because people understand the urgency of the situation that we're in. But that is kind of the way you can get some of those intangibles noticed out of the way. Because if what's going to happen, and you guys are going to see this is going to happen, mark my words. We're going to get down to signing day, right? And there's going to be less kids signed this year at the early signing period because they're going to be like, I just don't feel like, I had enough. But yeah, but everybody, it's not like it was just you. Like everybody was dealing with the same situation. And I understand, don't make a decision if you don't feel comfortable. But if you don't feel comfortable, then you need to adjust and figure out how the way to do that. Just like anything else, nobody's going to get you anything for free. So you need to adjust and you need to figure out a way as a recruit to make that informed decision for respect for you and your family and your future going forward.
Speaking of adjustments, we just caught a news flash, right? Micah Parsons is deciding to opt out for the 2020 season. What are your thoughts on that? And what are your thoughts on kids opting out right now?
Me personally, I think whatever you feel comfortable with as a young man, as an individual, as an adult, I think you need to do that. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a healthcare professional. I don't think anybody really knows the true ramifications of what's going on with this disease and how it's going to affect people. Number one, long term, everybody's saying, you can catch it and it can go away, but what's going to happen in 3 years when your lungs have been affected? Who knows? Nobody knows right now. So for people making a decision that benefits them, looking at their future, I think that is a 100% personal decision. Micah Parsons has a lot on the line right now. He's probably going to be a first-round draft pick. It's no different than the guys that opt out of the bowl games at the end of the year. Why are they doing that? They're doing that so they can protect their future and their investment. Right now, you tell me what's more dangerous, playing in one bowl game or playing a whole season with a COVID pandemic going on.
Well, especially when you're a top 10, top 15 possible guy, right? I mean, you have a chance to enter into a lottery. You have a chance to be one of the guys, top at your position. That's a big risk. That's a big risk you're taking.
We just had a kid on Shaq, with Sean Smith, and we asked him about it. He a fifth-year senior. Mm-hmm. He told us flat out, man, he need this year. So, he need to play. He's just on the opposite end of the spectrum. What do you say for kids like that?
It's, obviously we would all love to be able to ensure these kids' safety going through the year. And at that point, it comes with a risk reward. And that's the sad part about it, because realistically, Rashawn Smith shouldn't have to put himself in that position, but we can all understand why he feels like he has to. This is make or break for him. He's got to show what he's got to offer at the next level, and I completely understand that. I feel bad for those kids because I don't want them to have to put anything in jeopardy because of that. But at the same time, I completely understand why he feels. But this is a 100% injury rate sport that we're talking about. So every time we go out there and strap it on, we're putting something at risk. This is times 100, obviously, right now with the situation in the world, and there's no guarantees. So these guys, we gotta pray for these guys, make sure that the NCAA and their colleges and everybody that's surrounding these young men are doing the best protocols to make sure these guys are safe every Saturday, every week. And it's a little bit hard to tell a kid, hey, you should play, or hey, you shouldn't play right now when they have so much to risk, both ways. So that's why I said for each one of these individuals, it's important for them to make the best move, what they think is best for them in their situation.
Hey, Kenny, just to kind of hit on that as well, I heard you talk teamwork and utilizing the resources where you are. So I'm in a different seat now than these two guys. I got out of coaching and I got in administration. So as a director of student athlete development, what would you suggest, I guess, to like how valuable are we now, right? We were always valuable, right? But at the end of the day, that player who has that fifth year and like, you know what, should I invest this or should I invest my time in some career development, some networking, and go ahead and get that entry-level job or that $100,000 job, depending on my major, if I'm an engineer, whatever it is. Because like you said, you didn't have to get to the NFL as a player. And I didn't have to do that as a player. And I got to the point of working with NFL guys and working in Power 5 schools. There are other alternatives. So how important is programming now in the schools?
And, I don't think there's anything more important than programming, helping these guys in the next stage going forward. Because the reality of the situation is over the last, probably like 5 to 10 years ago, I think they started to really understand how important that was. That's why you see a lot of schools having the role of player development, and not only just one guy, or some schools didn't have any. Now most schools have at least one. Some schools have a whole team of player development. Those things are so important because we all know the story of even the guy that makes it to the NFL that a couple years out, where are they now? They're in bad situations or whatever because they didn't have any guys or they never even thought what's going to happen after this thing is over. But now schools are putting in the resources to do clinics, workshops. I know Penn State does a whole career day where they bring in hundreds of businesses. Maybe they have Penn State connections, maybe they don't, just from the community, Wall Street, everything, just to give these guys an idea of what's out there. Not saying that, hey, don't go to the NFL, but these are other options when you're done playing, when you're not done playing. Great example of that is I think it's 2 or 3 years ago. Well, he was a fifth-year senior this year. Cornerback John Reed just got drafted in the 5th round, I believe.
4th round.
4th round?
Penn State, your guy, right? From Philly?
Yeah.
Corner kid?
Well, he's a Jersey kid, but he went to high school.
He's a Jersey kid. He went to St. Joseph High School, correct?
Yep. Yes, he was same school as DeAndre Swift.
Really smart kid too, right?
That's what I was going to touch on. He 3.98 GPA kid, computer science major. He tears his ACL and leading up to the season, and had an opportunity because he was rehabbing to go out to Oregon and do an internship at Intel, and they were ready to hire him. Well, he's a little busy right now because he's in camp. But, once he's done playing, he's going to have an opportunity to go work at, one of these major corporations. But that was all set up through the whole mentorship and the
and that was John Reed, correct?
John Reed, that's right.
Yeah. And for those listeners and followers out there, man, go check out John Reed's story, man. It's a great story. It's motivational, and a lot of kids need to hear it, and they need to see that.
And John Reed's a great example because he's a coach's dream in the sense that he would come on recruiting trips. This is a crazy story I got to tell y'all real quick. He would come on recruiting trips, and all he wanted to do was watch film. And, we'd have a bunch of kids up, and he'd be in the defensive back room with the defensive back coach, and they'd be going over film. It'd be like 8:30 at night, 9 o'clock at night. And I remember one time James Franklin walks in to Bob Shoop, the defensive coordinator at the time, and is like, Bob, what are you doing? Like, you got to let him go. Shoop was like, I tried to leave 2 hours ago. He wants to stay in here and watch film. While everybody else is out there having a good time, John's in there trying to break down film with the defensive coordinator, DB's coach. And, after that, I was like, well, he'll be all right. He'll figure it out. It didn't matter because he was always going to work hard and do what he needed. That was in the classroom. That was in the field. That was in the weight room. It didn't matter. Great guy to look up to from because he's one of those kids that doesn't have prototypical size, but he was just not going to be outworked. So great guy to kind of model your game after when you want to make it to the next level.
sound like those tangible skills, right? Like you
Absolutely.
saw that in high school with the GPA and the type of high school. So it translates student athletes. If you don't understand it, you're hearing it here through stories and through the coaching. It matters what you do because it's a direct correlation of who you're going to be later in life. Awesome.
And just to touch on that, I said it earlier, get on the grades now. I don't care if you're an 8th grader, freshman, sophomore, whatever. We track grades from freshman year. It's not like we just look at what you did that junior year. We go back all the way. And for those guys that kind of had a slow start in high school, don't think, hey, it's over. We also look at progression. If you had a tough time transitioning into high school and you figured it out later on, we look at the upswing. Okay, he may have some struggles, but look where he's trending. So don't think don't look at yourself right now and be like, oh, man, I struggled in the beginning. We look at that too. The thing is, you can control your effort in everything, whether it's on the field, whether it's in the classroom. You can control that. You can never look at anyone but yourself and say, I didn't try hard enough. And it doesn't always have to be, I got an A+ or I have a 4.0. Your ceiling might not be a 4.0. You might have a 3.0, but guess what? You did everything possible to get that. And our coaches talk to the guidance counselors. Our coaches talk to the teachers, talk to the coaches, and they let us know all that information. It doesn't matter that you don't have to be a 4.0 student. I'm not saying that. All we're saying is that you have to put in the work, put in the effort, because one thing that you're going to notice when you get to college, you're going to have so many resources that probably a lot of you don't have in high school. So if you can maintain that work ethic and you can bring that into college with all the resources you're going to get from an academic, football, nutrition standpoint, you're going to flourish. So a lot of times you'll see guys that are not the best students in high school. They get to a situation. The perfect example of that is Saquon Barkley. He wasn't a great high school student, but when he got to college, anything you told that kid to do, hey, Saquon, do an extra hour of studying this week. Okay. Hey, Saquon, do an extra hour in the weight room this week. Okay. It didn't matter. And that comes with, number one, the relationship and the trust and the willingness for you to develop as a young man and to do and trust those people. Saquon knew that whatever his coaches were telling him to do was in his best interest because he trusted them and he cared about them and they knew he cared about, and he knew they cared about him. So he was able to not worry about, hey, this doesn't make that much sense, because at the end of the day, you don't have all the answers because this is your first time through college, but I've been to college for the last 20 years. So I understand the obstacles, and the coaches understand. I mean, you got coaches that have been in this game for 40 plus years. They know everything that you're going through and you're about to go through. So when they're telling you something, they're not going to tell you something that's going to be detriment to you. And you got to know that. And I hope if you're at that school, you can trust and believe in that coach because you're there, because you believe in them.
Hey, give me your top Saquon Barkley story. Top Saquon Barkley story. Let me hear that.
Top. Man, there's a lot. I'll give you one. This actually has to do with before he even got to Penn State. We knew he was special, and I don't care what anybody tells you. Nobody knew he was that special. But he was up there on probably his last recruiting trip, and he was really excited about getting there. And we're walking through the museum at the stadium at Penn State, and he's like, "Hey, you think I'm a redshirt next year?" And at the time, our starting running back was a sophomore, and in my head, I'm like, "Yeah, probably." But I said, we'll see. Never know what happens. Come in, work hard, do what you gotta do. And he just was like, I at least want to try to return kicks or something. And I just was like, at the time, it's funny looking back on it because obviously he went on to have one of the best freshman years in Penn State history at running back. But he didn't – that's the thing about him. He just wanted to contribute. He wanted to be able to work and do whatever it took. I remember one time in the summer I saw him out in the field, in the summertime, just hitting the single man sled by himself. His shirt was off. It was hot, sweating. He's hitting it. So I walk out there, and this is right before his junior year. I walk out there, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he said, I hear to make it in the NFL, you got to be really good on special teams. So I'm just working on my front line block for kickoff return. And I was like, any special teams coordinator puts you on front line, he's getting fired the next day. But that's the point is,
no doubt, you're out of there.
But I didn't even have the heart to tell him. I was just like, all right, go ahead, man. All right, whatever. Right. But he was going to do whatever it took. Now, mind you, this is before his junior year. He was already Saquon at that point. That was after the Rose Bowl. So he just never lost that mindset of hard work pays off. I'm gonna do whatever it takes, and a lot of
whatever. It sounds like the Ravens organization had a big influence on you, and being around Ozzie and being around those guys. I mean, that was a first class organization. I enjoyed my only 1 year, but we didn't win, but it was a fun year. I felt comfortable. But I always felt like those guys, even from the moves that they make, drafting Ray, and the list goes on how many players that they got that's going to be Hall of Famers. But, I mean, tell me that influence that they put on you. Like, because I know they big in, putting out coaches and scouts and whatever the case.
We ain't got enough time for me to go through how much I got to appreciate, what I learned from that organization. I mean, man, Ozzie Newsome, different cat. Like, nobody like him in the sense that, he is he's all class. I'll tell you one thing I learned from him, and young men, please listen to this. This is important. Ozzie Newsome was the general manager of the Baltimore Ravens, Hall of Fame college player, Hall of Fame NFL player, will be a Hall of Fame personnel guy. He could be in a room for an hour watching prospects. Mind you, he's everyone's boss. He's the head coaches of the Ravens boss. He's every scout, everybody's boss. He'll be in a room watching players. Everything's going back and forth. He can be in there for hours. He won't say one word. He's evaluating. He's evaluating the film. He's evaluating the personnel in the room. He's just evaluating everything. And then, when we're done, he gets up and leaves. He's the guy that when he says something, it's like mountains move because he doesn't waste words. He doesn't have time for that. When he says something, it matters. So I say that to tell you young men out there, it's so much more important to listen, evaluate, take everything in, read the room, because if you're always doing this, then you're not getting anything. I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot about reading people, understanding people, taking that in from that man, because he's unbelievable. He's the guru, the wizard, whatever you want to call it. The organization itself, all the guys in there, Eric DaCosta, guys that have gone on. Joe Douglas is a GM at the New York Jets right now. Ian Cunningham, director of college scouting at Philadelphia right now. Andy Weidel, second command at Philadelphia right now. I mean, the list goes on and on. Phil Savage, George McKinney. I mean, all under Ozzie. There's not anyone like him in the business, and that's why they've had so much success for so long. And the man that's now the GM, Eric DaCosta, was Ozzie's number 2. So everything that makes Eric great is a byproduct of Ozzie Newsome. And Eric's his own man, but he still comes under the Ozzie tree, and it's no doubt why they're keeping the success, keeping that thing rolling, because of the foundation that Ozzie Newsome has laid. Steve Bisciotti. I think when you were there, it was still Art, right? Was Art still the owner?
No,
it was Steve.
Still Steve.
Okay.
Yeah, it was still Steve. I sat down when I first signed. I sat down with him. First thing he asked me, "Why you ain't signed with Maryland?" I said, "You asked me that, damn."
Yeah, but I mean,
Mr. Bisciotti.
Yeah,
Hey, but I think DeCostas, right? He was second in charge, right? I think it was them, or was the other dude that went to Cleveland? It was I think
Phil.
DeCosta. DeCosta brought me here, but like, I think it was him. He was like, "Yeah, I ain't really want to sign you." Tell me straight up, I ain't really want to sign you. But Rex wanted to sign you, so we're gonna see how you do. So I wound up starting in 134 tackles and led the team tackles and all that. But that's what I meant about they always was 100%. And I was cool with that. Just let me know where I stand at. I'm going to fight through that. It don't matter. Yeah. Tell me what's the biggest characteristic those guys look for in a player.
Well, it's Baltimore, so you got to have that Raven DNA. You got to be tough. That's number one.
Yeah, what is that? What is that Raven DNA that they talk about? That Raven toughness. What is that?
You got the second ever pick. Well, first two picks in Ravens history, two Hall of Famers, Jonathan Ogden and Ray Lewis. But they've always prided themselves on defense in Baltimore, from Ray to Ed to Suggs to you name it, C.J. Mosley. They always have prided themselves on defense. I think they're the only team in NFL history not to allow a touchdown by the offense in the Super Bowl. When they played the Giants, they had one kickoff return, but I don't think the offense ever scored a touchdown in that Super Bowl.
Yeah, I went to that game.
Yeah, down in, I think, Tampa, right?
It's down in Tampa, yep.
Yeah. But that Ravens DNA, man, it's just the mentality. Those guys, it's funny watching John Harbaugh now from back when I was there, because when I was there, he was relatively still a young coach, even when we won the Super Bowl. And make no mistake, that was Ray's team. That was Ray and Ed's team. It was no mistake. And mistake. After that,
Ray ran the stove.
No mistake. And then after that, obviously Ray retired, and Ed ended up moving on, and now it's really kind of his team, and I've seen that. So when they say that Ravens DNA, you got to live up to some real high expectations. You know that.
Yeah.
I mean, 52 was a Raven since the inception of the team.
The standard is the standard.
It is exactly what it is. And, I mean, obviously he's respected amongst the league, NFL Hall of Famer. I mean, those guys really, and I mentioned it earlier, as great as a player he was, the way he worked, the knowledge he had. I'm shocked he's not a coach yet, just because he's such a cerebral player. People don't think about that. They see the hits, they see how athletic he was, especially back in the day. But the amount of film that guy watched, the amount of work he put in, the way he took care of his body. I mean, he played, seemed like forever, at a very tough position. I tell you one thing, if you want to see something crazy, go back to the Super Bowl year where he tore his arm. He refused to come out of the game, by the way. Tears his tricep.
That's one of the worst injuries, by the way. Yeah. I just got to tell you.
But the next play, ISO right at him. He takes on the block with one arm and couldn't wrap.
I remember that play.
So he grabs him by the good arm and jumps
play.
And pulls him down. I'm like, all right, man.
You got it.
Yeah, right.
You got it.
but Ed my favorite player, though. But
yeah,
Ray was all that.
You couldn't go wrong with any of those guys. And to the young men listening right now, it's a testament to, yes, you have coaches, yes, you have adults there, but take charge of your team if you're a leader. Like, that is your team. The coaches can tell you what to do. They can put you in position, but you got to do it. And not only do you have to do it, but you have to hold your peers accountable. I know, hey, when we was playing together, we would always – everyone would butt heads because we were that competitive. And, I mean, we didn't have a lot of mistakes, but if we did, we damn sure let you know about it because we held each other to that standard.
Oh, we took it upon ourselves.
Absolutely.
D'Amico was our coach, but we ran our team.
Yeah, and do it out of a place of love, not a belittling or anything like that. But I wanted E to be great, so I wanted to push him to be great. He wanted me to be great, so he wanted to push me to be great. Never out of a place of love, never out of a place of hate, but always out of a place of love to make you guys all better, because this is the ultimate team sport. It's 11 on the field. One guy falls down. It's 6. We all got to do our part. So just remember that, like, you don't have to wait for the adults to give you the leadership. You can be that leadership on the field, in your community, between your friends and your peer group. Don't wait till your senior year. If you're a freshman and you the man, be the man. I mean, it is what it is. Like, you have to take that amongst yourself. And that's another, as Chad, that's another way that we look at those intangibles, those things we look for. You know, you got, if you want to play Division I football at a high level, you got to be the man in high school. Like, we're not taking the guy that's not the man. Like,
you ain't taking the honorable mention guy, the second team
man.
Conference. You want to play of the year, first team, like
that's
guys, right?
Hey, gentlemen, that's a tough story to give to some parents, especially in this LA area. That's a hard conversation to have. You know, I'm glad to hear that from you.
Got guys like not even first team getting Power 5 offers though, or expecting.
Tommy and I talked about that. We're not gonna say no names, Tommy, but we've seen a guy play in the U.S. Army All-American game and was not on the All-State team in his area. Like, he wasn't even All-Conference.
How you do that? Yeah. It's politics. Just tell us, is there a little bit of politics in sports?
Oh man, absolutely. But I mentioned it earlier. Like, stars don't make a football player. You gotta play it on the field. Like, when I watch, I love doing this because I'll do this with some of my young guys. I won't tell them who the player is. I'll be like, all right, we're just gonna throw on some film right now, and then I'll bring on a guy, and it's obvious who's better, and then I'll tell them, okay, now bring up their 247 profile, and the guy that everyone agrees has like no offers, and the guy that is not that good is a 5-star. I'm like, so just remember, it's cool to sign a top 5 recruiting class, but in 3 years, when you got to play against Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State, they don't care what he was ranked in high school. He still got to be the man on the field. So we can get caught up in the stargazing and all that. That's cool. And I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot because I like to tout that, this many recruiting classes, and that's cool. But at the end of the day, the things that I'm proud of are the graduation rates, are the fact that these men won championships. These guys are doing positive things in the community, all those things. The stars are great, and they make for good talk and barbershop, whatever. But at the end of the day, you got to play football. Like, nobody lines up and say, Sid, what was your star? Yeah, nobody cares. Like, you got to block me, I got to block you, you got to catch it, you got to run, you got to tackle. Nobody cares. So for all the guys that are – and I've seen kids call up 247 riders trying to get their stars up. That happens. NCAA actually had a sit-down a couple years ago, and they were saying parents are buying stars.
That definitely goes on here in Los Angeles, California.
Sure.
Oh, man, they'll pay for anything. If they can pay – no, if they can pay for it, they're going to do it. It's not a game.
And that's fine, but at the end of the day, that's a snapshot and that's a moment, and that's good for the kid if he wants to be a 5-star. But there's a lot of pressure that comes along with that 5-star rating too. If you have that attached to you, you better be a 5-star, because if not, that's a little bit you're doing the kid a disservice if you're putting that much pressure on him when he's really not at that level. Because at the end of the day, it's like being a 1st-round pick versus a 6th-round pick. Who better perform right away? That 1st round, you better come in and show out. Because if not –
be a franchise guy.
Exactly. So there's a little bit of, Kayvon Thibodeau, great example. California kid at Oregon last year. Amazing freshman year. He's going to be an amazing college player and potentially.
And we played against the Calabasas. Hate to cut you off, but I just want to throw that in there. So me and Kenny are very familiar with this kid. I played against him a senior year in high school. He dominated the game, and then took a scholarship to Oregon. And I'll let Kenny take the way on that one.
Yeah, and played as a true freshman, and had a great year. But him being the number 1 or number 2 player in the country based on how it was rated versus rivals of 247 doesn't matter. He was a 5-star across the board. It's a lot of pressure on that kid to come in, be the man. If he redshirts, which is not a bad thing, I know, but if he redshirts, probably people are looking at it as a disappointment, which is not really fair to the kid, because you got to be. It's a lot of things to being able to play Division I college football at the highest level. You got to be mature enough,
Especially
physically,
at
physically
DN.
mature enough.
Man, 3-0. I've been saying 3-0 since my 10th grade year. I've been going 3-0. Everybody on the 3-0. Hey, I ain't gonna get hurt. Nothing's gonna happen.
Right.
I'm good.
I love it when the kids commit and say, "I'll be spending my next 3 years." I'm like,
Yeah. See? And I'm sitting there like, yeah, okay.
It's hard to do. It's hard.
It's real tricky. It get real tricky.
Yeah,
Man.
no doubt.
Oh, cool. Hey, so when you get back on, hey, what you think about the Rock box buying the XFL? Do you think it sticks this time? From if COVID don't hit shut down last year, you think that's going to be a viable thing?
I tell you what, I don't know how many of y'all were watching it, but I was actually watching the XFL. It was doing some good stuff. Good ball. You know, had a couple of former players that went there. Had a couple.
It was good ball. It was good ball.
Good ball.
Yeah. Out here in St. Louis, it was jumping.
Yeah, I tell you what, if they can follow the motto, the model that they were on, you know, they had some good people in the organization. Shout out to my man Justin King from Penn State, my man Ivan Ostro that were out there in the administration part of that, putting that thing off the ground. If they can keep that going, I think it's going to be all right. And I would have never said that before I actually saw the product on the field, because I thought they're not trying to compete with the NFL. They have their market, they have their niche, but it's good ball. I tell you what, I'd rather watch XFL than, you know, AAA baseball or G League.
And this next year and a half with COVID, it's going back that, you know, with them kids playing in the spring, they ain't gonna have an opportunity to make a team. Just like these guys this year didn't have a real, you know, ain't gonna have a good opportunity to make it a squad. Those 5th, 6th, 7th round guys, the guys that didn't get drafted. I mean, there's going to be a lot of talent out here on the streets in this next year and a half just because of COVID back things up.
That's the two things that I think are going to be affected the most by that in both college and the league. You got to do something with the scholarship limits in college. You got to, because you're missing a year. So those guys that would have been gone, it's all going to be jammed together. I don't know how they're going to figure that out. And I know I've seen the NFL have done something with like the reserve COVID thing for the NFL guys. I think somebody just came off of one of the lists today. They have like a reserve COVID list of players, so separate.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford's on that list.
Okay,
you know, he even came in contact, or his wife just gave birth, so they put him on this list now.
Right.
Yeah.
So they got to figure something out with that, because then, and I know you and I were talking about this last week with our boys, just about like, how is it going to work for that middle, like that class, that like the rookies right now, if you know, things don't go the way we think, and then you stack another rookie class on top of that class, the roster numbers don't make sense for that. And then it just, the opportunity for some of these undrafted guys that make the team, you got to, like I said, you have a running back that goes undrafted this year, and now next year you draft a guy in the second round that's a running back. Who's making the team? The undrafted guy doesn't even have a chance. So we got to figure something out about that, because you just lose an opportunity for these young men that in the normal circumstances would obviously at least have 1 year to prove it. And now we're not giving them that opportunity. So like you said, Tommy, maybe the XFL is the answer, because there's going to be a lot of talent out there, and that just doesn't fit in based on the number standpoint. So we got to figure out a way to do something with it. And shoot, these games might be loaded come when
I think so.
I
I was about to say, because what about that kid from the college level who would go to Oregon, Alabama, you know, one of these big schools, and knowing that Mike is going to leave, and then maybe that kid doesn't leave, and then now I'm like, well, I came here because I thought he was going to jump. Well, I can't jump because I didn't get that year, and I need. So, like you said, on both levels, man, we got to figure out something.
Yeah. It's we do, because it's going to be a lot of people affected by this, and you know, it's just not fair. We can't make people suffer just for this one situation. We got to figure out something, and inevitably somebody's going to probably suffer because of this, but we got to try to minimize that as much as possible.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you, man, Kenny, it's been a pleasure talking with you, brother. And again, we're going to kind of wrap this up. We definitely sending that invite for you to come back, man, because we could be talking all night, man, and catching up. But
you a gem dropper, my man. You drop gems the whole time.
Next time we got sent eat a chicken box and half and half.
Of course. Send it all the way out.
Hey, remember ketchup.
Yeah, right.
And I'm gonna send you back Trace tacos.
Oh man.
Hey, if you get on with the XFL, I'm your coach.
I got you.
Go ahead and bring me in.
I got you.
Hey,
there
he got the pedigree. You're not gonna be on your. You're gonna be on your feet real soon. You got a lot of people behind you.
Hey, you still owe me one though. You don't even know if you remember.
What happened?
What?
When you came up to Penn State with my man,
let him know. Yeah, let him know.
JK, he wasn't showing me no love then. Send him down to the nose.
Get him.
Hey, Kenny, I think I had to tell you, like, hey, man, you know, that guy, he wrapped up, man.
That was, trust me, that was not me. I did not. Now, y'all was number 2, though. Y'all wasn't number 1. I hate to say it. And I'm a Florida State guy.
I know.
But it ain't about me.
I feel you.
It ain't about me.
Yeah.
Y'all was number 2, but the guru was number 1, which is Ohio State. To me, that's why I told him.
Hey.
Personally. That's why I told him. Yo picked Maryland, then he picked Florida State. I like, man, do what you got to do, buddy.
I can't say nothing to that dude in Columbus because, he the GOAT. So, it is, that's the man. He got all his roots here, too. They love to remind people of that.
Hey, well, again, thank you for joining today's episode of Players Talk Live on the Broad Network. Kenny, I want to give you this opportunity, man. Let people know where you are in the socials, anything you got coming up, man. We want to give you the platform, too, to launch yourself as well.
Yeah, I'm easy to find. Just my name on all the social platforms with no vowels, KNNYSNDRS. That's on all the platforms the same. So, please, if you guys have any questions, I'm accessible. I'm easy to find. Everything's open. So slide in those DMs, hit me on the messages. Any questions, anything, you guys be like, hey, just watch my film. Tell me what you think I could work on. I'd love to give you guys any advice or any steer you guys in the right direction. Please, definitely willing to help. So anything I can do.
Man,
awesome. And Players Talk Live can be found on all social media platforms as well and podcasts. We know we're going to be following Coach Sanders. And at the end of the day, I hope he believes in Players Talk Live and what we have going. So I'm your host, Chad Allen, with my co-hosts Tommy Polley and Eric King. We're signing out from Players Talk Live, where athlete voices matter.